Alrighty, and we are back. Happy Monday, episode 67 of the Leonis Report. It's August 19th. We got a news release this morning. We have a JP live stream this morning, but before getting ahead of ourselves, good evening to everyone here, and evening, JP. How's it going, man?
Going very good. Feeling good this week. We've been a little bit down the last couple of weeks, but I feel like we said what we had to say. We gave the hard criticisms, and it's time to turn the page and let them respond. And then if they are going to respond, give them the time to do that. And let's talk about the game, what's going on this week. And actually, I have been pleasantly surprised that we have been on somewhat of a regular schedule here the last few weeks anyway, where we're getting the news here on Monday mornings, and obviously that lends itself pretty well to what we're trying to do here.
It does, right? Not only for us, but even the gameplay wise, there were some weeks there where we had the extended days that like login rewards would run out, and you would just kind of be waiting for the guild map to change or the arena map to change, and things did feel like just slightly too long because we've been conditioned over 4 years on that weekly cadence or bi-weekly cadence that yeah, for a while there it did seem a little dragging, and we're now getting closer to the JP schedule still. Summer Resnick was a welcome surprise, but I guess we'll go over the topic lineup real quickly here. We have Shurecca, who's being introduced. Very, very highly anticipated unit for a lot of good reasons. We will give our thoughts and an overview on her and talk about her impact in global here. It's the same as JP. What makes her special? How do you manage that with the Vizier, economy and whatnot? But we also have a lot of other just like game update things. I know you wanted to talk about the WBEL, which is an alternative to the WDL, which is another fan-made, fan-run PvP style tournament of sorts that is very fun because you add a lot of rules. We'll talk more about it in a bit. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we'll talk about the PvP updates where we have limited guild war, free match, class matches coming back. There's a couple quality of life things they decided to introduce that we'll give a thumbs up or thumbs down on those. We have a decent amount of JP news to talk about with Lilyth being released, in addition to the brand new collaboration, the Trials of Mana, or Trials of Mana, that just got announced this morning, 6 a.m. Eastern, our time. And obviously, we'll talk about sort of Convallaria, I'm sure, but we do have a fun little game that, to lighten the mood, we're going to do a sort of like nostalgia look back on some units, and we decided to kind of do this more actively and frequently. That we got 20 names of units. We're going to spin the wheel 5-10 times, and then whatever unit pops up, we're gonna, whatever it is, say a happy memory about them, something we like about the character, whatever it may be, but just kind of like a character appreciation of sorts. So we got a lot of good stuff coming for you tonight, but not the least of which is Shurecca. So I'll let you kind of kick things off here with some initial thoughts of whatever you want to talk about with her. Are you excited for the unit?
You know what? I feel like since the day that she dropped in JP, we've been talking about her. So, she's been kind of highly built up here for, over a month now, right? She came out in JP, what was it? Just at the end of June, right? So it's been about 6 weeks or 5 to 6 weeks that she's been out over there. And she's taken the game over, she's become one of the top units played over in JP since she came out. And unfortunately, she kind of just got shifted with the previous, two best units of, Gilgamesh and Sephiroth, and that just has become like the new super team for the most part. And that's, where obviously where Resnick and kind of her niche as an anti-follow-up kind of is born. So, we have Resnick in the game, so that potentially maybe changes things a little bit for how our meta might shape out. Maybe depending on what happens with the map, maybe Gilgamesh starts to take a dive, because certainly his play rate has gone down over in JP since Resnick's introduction. I know that have had some issues with the map, in terms of Resnick's play, but those maps do change. So, maybe the next one will be better. In terms of the unit itself, I think it's a strong unit, still a good one. I think that it's not necessarily like a must grab. Like, I don't know. I think that if you have Resnick, you can build like an effective counter team around that, and don't necessarily need to go, into Shrek. And Gilgamesh, of course, is probably the best unit that we have against her. he can still cut her down very, very effectively. Um, so those are kind of my basic thoughts. I do like the unit. I'm kind of excited to turn the page over into a bit more magic focused meta and kind of get back to some black mage. I know that she was played a little bit with Helena, which was
Yes.
very interesting too. So I don't know. There's some fun things you can do there. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like her addition to the game, not only as a wind unit, where we've really needed a new wind unit to kind of prop up that element, but Staff Black Mage as well. That class of characters, many of them are inherently power crept, and that's not even fourth anniversary related. That's just straight up like as time has gone on. I'll bring up the list of URs here, but one of the big issues with some of the more recent Staff Black Mage units is that a lot of them are very diamond oriented, and none of them really have that built-in dispel AoE wide res of magic type damage. They don't have that, and so their damage has been just drastically awful as of late. And I always contested that should they decided to like shift. And I actually had some copium for Amnelis for a brief period of time there, where she was such a single target oriented character potentially, like the unit res down and things like that. But Shurecca really nails that as a magic user, where she is very heavily not only a single target scaling unit in terms of some of her select twos, but she is one of the units that has the unit penetration as well, 30% here, and she actually gets more on the Esper that doesn't come out this week, comes out the next week, but she can further get that unit res pen, which is certainly one of those things that just like you can't really get around it anyway, because it's not debuff weekend related. It's a personal buff for her. It's not an imperil on the enemy. So there's really nothing you can do to stop how much unit res pen she gets, other than maybe the buff weakening effect that we've looked at from characters like Cloud and Shadow Links. But get a little ahead of myself. This is still a great unit that also brings in a new mechanic of being able to dispel part of the honeycomb barrier. This is brand new into the game. This is only on the limit break, so it is a one-time usage. But there's a lot of things here in addition to the follow-up attack, which is exceptionally strong in that her follow-up attack is to dispel AP restore and dispel haste, which is awesome because it's not a general dispel in the sense that you lose all your buffs, but dispelling haste is one of the most important things to still dispel. Every team needs someone who can do that to an effect, otherwise you'll just get lapped very quickly. But even the AP restore angle, we obviously have seen a lot of teams use the Veritas of the Wind TMR. There are some units that do have some inherent AP dispel. I know King Mont does. I think Kadaj does, off the top of my head. But just
Yeah.
having this as a follow-up attack is a really easy way to kind of maintain some of the physical units as of late, which there are many that have the AP restore within their kits. And so there's a lot that she does really well just from a pure damage perspective. It's a big status effect being introduced here too that we really haven't had to contend with. Maybe a little bit with A2 under limit break, but immobilize, where she comes in with this 35% chance, and it's actually a boosted rate if she has the honeycomb barrier up here. So there it's not trust stoneable away. There will always be some a bit of it happening, and I am a fan of that ailment. I think it can be debilitating for tanks to get mobilized. I obviously think for units in terms of preventing them from moving into a position where they can do the optimal amount of damage is also really big. Where if you can nail a unit in place, all of a sudden they're just kind of stuck using whatever ability can land as opposed to the one that does the most damage. I think that's a really nice way to kind of like prevent some of the big numbers that we're seeing. But she's got a lot of great survivability tools. She does have the honeycomb barrier. She does have a physical 7,500 HP barrier. There's a really nice buff for teammates here, which again can be dispellable, but 20% damage up for teammates is certainly noteworthy, particularly in a follow-up type team where that's a big part of the damage calc of the follow-up damage. And the biggest, most important thing, I'm saving this best for last, is that she can seal buffs on hit. And I just need to, it's for allies. That's one of the big, it's not herself. It's herself and allies that upon hit, you can seal the enemy's capability to dispel buffs on you. And Volke has that. He's one of the only units in the game, might be the only unit. But her in particular, because of her range and her ability to pass it on to teammates, this is a major balance changing buff for a variety of reasons where we are seeing right now a lot of dispel. So I think that's everything I could possibly want to cover from like the big hits. But yeah, great character.
100% agreed with everything that you're saying there. I think going back to the sealing points, one sort of constant that we've seen thus far since those effects have been introduced is that when they are the ones that you can pass on to allies, they are the most effective because then you're getting more opportunities, more turns, potentially even more range or more AoE where you can have those buffs get stuck to the enemy team. So whenever I see that they can be passed to the allies, that's always a big positive for me. That's I think one of the reasons why Volke never really took off, even though he was really one of the first units to get this really amazing capability when you think about it, especially when you think about Sephiroth and kind of how incredible he is at dispelling buffs, with his huge AoEs and that lasting 4 turns into the fight. So
Yep.
she is very much designed as like an anti-physical mage. She can bruise there with her barrier. She's got decent defenses, to back that up with the honeycomb. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any sort of tertiary survival method. So no re-raise, no reflex, no courage, nothing like that. So she is kind of primed to go with, get paired with somebody like a Luciel or maybe somebody else that can kind of maybe augment her innate capabilities with that. Even a Resnick who does have the full life. Unfortunately, to this point, Gumi just hasn't wanted to make that a guaranteed raise,
Yeah.
which I don't understand it. The 4 years in, that's kind of the one that's getting the short end of the stick. But still, when you have two 97 faith units, it is at a 97% chance. So yeah, I think that she's going to be a game changer of a unit. She does also, like, you can't really even build up too much wind resistance against her because she does have that really strong magic imperil there with the non-elemental damage. She does have sort of the heal back capabilities that were, so strong up until Curse came into the game.
Yep.
And of course, because she is curse resistant innately at 50%, throw a trust stone on her and she doesn't really even have to worry about
Yes.
curse whatsoever, which is going to be hard to deal with when she can just heal herself up every turn.
Yep.
Um, at this point, I noticed that Eric Ironsky in the chat, he mentioned, how do you guys feel about using Reflect against her? Great. Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
Absolutely. That's
I
why
think that
Helena
was
came
one.
in. Oh, go ahead. I know you can
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's why Helena was coming back, and in the JP meta, they were looking for answers to this unit, and that was one that's actually, when you look at her skill set, she does line up pretty well against this unit. Helena has very high unit resistance. She can get up into the 70s or even higher. She does have very strong magic mitigations with her buffs and kind of innate capabilities. And then the reflect on top of that. So yeah, Shrek, she can't dispel the magic reduction that Helena and Joom and some other units have.
Yep.
So that I think was one of the reasons why the Gilgamesh pairing was so incredible for her, because he is to this point the only unit in the game that is able to do that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And definitely a good call out on the curse aspect. I actually forgot about that entirely. That's
Yeah.
a huge reprieve. And Gestalt had asked the question, I think it's relevant. Does the arrival of Summer Resnick affect Shrek? And the answer is yes. Summer Resnick is a kind of unit, and I've kind of digested this over the past couple weeks. I don't think she hard counters any one particular meta unit, but I think she brings tools that can really weaken all three of them in various ways. Those three being Sephiroth, Gilgamesh, and Shurecca. And one of them is the removal of follow-up attacks is absolutely a potential big one here for her, not only from the damage perspective, but just being able to maybe retain some of this AP restore and the haste. Obviously, the healing capabilities are there. She can also give magic barriers to teammates, which Shurecca does have a magic barrier break, but it's only a one-time use here on the limit break. And then I know there's more things, but I know there's a couple things in Resnick's kit that line up to really contend with this kind of unit. So I don't think it affects it in the way that it makes her weaker, but it's certainly a unit because I'm sure there's teams where Resnick and Shurecca, that's actually one of the biggest meta teams, is Resnick, Shurecca, and Sephiroth in JP, where the three of them, with their synergy between Book, Katana, and Staff Black Mage, go really well together. So if anything, Summer Resnick actually helps Shrek because it's one of the most popular teams to be used with her. So yeah, definitely a good thing or a bad thing. It's a lot of chess matchups there.
Yeah. I think when I saw Summer Resnick's kit, my words were, yesterday Shrek was absolutely like a must pull unit. Today, I think that you can potentially skip her and kind of get by if you have Resnick, and that was kind of the caveat there.
Yep.
So if you did spend a lot of viz and kind of go in on Resnick, and you have other units like Cypher, like Joom, like the Greatsword team, I think you can mix some of those units with Resnick and have an effective team that could contend with the various Shrek variants that we're no doubt going to see. Um, that's not going to be taking away anything though from this unit. I think that she will be, a top pick in the game. She will be a meta unit, even despite Resnick's presence, I think.
Yeah, completely agreed. And we'll just quickly look at her weapon that she comes with too, just to see if there's anything that adds a layer to the onion. And I don't think so, but this is a great weapon. It's a wind-oriented effect here that reduces all magical damage by 8%. It's 15 crit rate, and then it's the 20 spirit penetration here. So I do love the fact that it's got a pretty notable crit rate stat on the staff. You don't always see these on these magic scaling units because frankly magic units aren't historically really known for their high crit rates. So I think this is a nice thing they've added. And even Shurecca, they've attempted to do a little bit with her crit rate where she does have an extra 10, but honestly, she's not crazy high. So them adding this on the weapon, I think, is a really nice way to kind of like amplify some of her crit rate innately because she doesn't really end up there. She does have a passive here that gives another 12% too, but even with this, it's not like Gilgamesh levels or who's the other unit just came out? Sunil levels, like the high crit rate units. So I love this weapon. I love it for that it's wind. I still think she's gonna crit rate a lot. But I think this weapon's a big part of it. I like that.
I think in terms of like raw capability, she's like just under Gilgamesh, just by a couple points though. So I think she can be competitive there. She does have like some innate debuff weakening and reaction block too, which I think all of the best units that are kind of at the top are coming with those innately baked in now. So obviously Black Mage has some immense vision cards too, like the VV card, like the Great Demon card, that made that team meta for a number of months, back at the end of 23 and into early 24. So yeah, I mean the Black Mage team mixes super well with a lot of other groups too, Book, Katana, even Greatsword too. You can build a team between those around the Hio card. So yeah, I think that's well worth an investment. She's probably gonna have that 12K paid, if you're tapped out and you want to spend money on the game. Um, yeah, I think it's a good pull for I would recommend her.
Yeah, I do want to pivot real quickly because there's some chat going on at the moment about how the new Wind from the Mana collaboration, that new unit, if he works well with her, we are kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We are going to try to talk to him soon. I'll be honest, it's way too early to give any opinion on how they work together, just because we don't know enough about the unit himself with the stats, the range, the all those things. It's too early, but we will talk about that soon. But yeah, that new Mana unit looks to be a unit that has some hate on it. So it is a very interesting play here to combine them because I know on that note, we saw a fun little uptick in Dario teams, the Dario Wind unit that kind of got swept under the carpet with the magic meta passing so quickly that, obviously it's still not the optimal time for him per se, that Gilgamesh is still a really solid counter to him of sorts. But, if you make a team with Resnick and even Dario, I still think is a really serviceable, strong tank and character overall. I like that she is strong enough to kind of bring back some of those other units that maybe haven't seen in a little while.
Yeah, she. I mean, there's the mono win play isn't really there, I would say,
I would
but
agree.
at
Yeah.
least like as a duo core, who would even be the third third win unit? They really haven't gotten much. I think what was the last one before that was like the Veritas of the Wind,
Yeah. I think so.
before Dario. So
Yeah.
um, the new mana unit though, like I probably going to be either a knight or a warrior. If it's a warrior, that mixes pretty well with Black Mage. As a knight, I think maybe a little bit less so, but maybe the mana cards could change that. We'll have to, like you're saying, it's really too early. I'm sure that they are going to be designed to go together because they usually tend to kind of build off the previous unit at least somewhat and kind of at least keep them under consideration from some mono element play. Uh, so
Yeah. And I know there's still more to unpack with her because the Garuda, we're not getting it this week, which is kind of nice. They were giving us unit and vision card for several weeks in a row there. It's nice to kind of have that break it up for us. That is a stellar Esper and vision card, but we are going to save that for next week when it actually is announced. But the spoiler is that that's an immensely good vision card and Esper for her that like really puts her on a different tier. So stay tuned for that. Absolutely. But I think that's all I really wanted to cover for Shurecca. Anything else you want to talk about before we keep going here?
yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. If you were somebody that kind of invested into Gilgamesh, I think that obviously he's probably still going to be very useful. Like I was saying, he's probably the best ice counter that we have in the game. I shouldn't even say probably. He is the best ice counter for this unit. He can, if you have him built out, he can one tap her, um, with his AOE attack. So keep that in mind if you're kind of looking for answers. It does already exist in the game.
Yeah. I'd like to give a dishonorable shout out. This TMR looks very very bad to me. I don't know if that's just me. Um, it's a hat which counts as your armor or your cloth slot. So gear wise, it's kind of inflexible. The stats on it are kind of odd to me. The crit evade is I think it might be the highest or tied for the highest that we've ever gotten on that stat. But even that crit evade stat really isn't something you would ever gear for in your TMR slot, and the ability seems very whatever because I think it's a repeat one. I don't think Shell prevents you from repeating a buff, if I recall. I'd have to brush up on that. It's been a little while, but yeah,
Yeah, it can repeat definitely.
yeah. This is it's a tough sell of a TMR for me. I'm not a fan.
I mean, the only thing I agree with you. I think the only thing that I could say good for it is that it is an improvement over the existing shell party TMRs that are in the game now, which are just going to be that shell effect pretty much for the party. So you do get the unit resistance, and it is the 4 turn buffs here. I don't know. It's kind of a very niche item at this point. You're looking for shell removal seal to kind of go along with it to kind of get the best
Exactly,
use out of it.
exactly. But yeah, I figured.
Which, if I
Yeah,
remember, she doesn't have shell removal, does she?
I don't
I
believe
think
so.
I think that's another area that Gilgamesh helps her.
Yep.
I one other point about this unit is I was kind of looking at her over today, and her penetrations really aren't stellar.
I'm glad you brought
Like
that up.
she gets up to 60% on spirit, and then including the staff, and then just 50% on magic res penetration with the trust stone. No buffs in the kit, no active buffs or anything to build that further. No access to any vision cards, which can bump that up for her either. So, um, you could potentially look at the new Esper to kind of get her another 20.
Was just gonna mention that. Yep.
The
Yep.
Orochi. So, but you are taking away 25% curse resistance from another unit at that point to do it. So it is costly.
That is a very good point. Yeah, yeah, we'll have to definitely think about the penetration angle. I know there's TMRs that can do that. I don't I don't think there's a vision card at the moment for Staff Black Mage that does. Does the Garuda one do it? We're getting ahead of ourselves already now, but I think that one was just luck, wasn't it?
It's luck. I don't think it has magic. Maybe it has it as a bestowed. No.
No. Hmm. Okay.
But I was just thinking, like, Jum is still like a very good anti-magic unit. Like, she has the magic res penetration debuff. So, that's another potential angle to look at. I think Jum could be important here if there's going to be a new core of Sephiroth and Shrek.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Actually, and one last thing to touch upon from a PVE content angle. I need a just for a second to Gumi. One of my biggest complaints as of late was that there wasn't a lot in the way of lore related content per se, where um I'll just cut to the chase. They're releasing as part of the Fireplane events the Shurecca short story event He Who Pulls the Trigger. It looks to be a prequel of sorts because in the teaser it's Jaden and the King of Lycaros. And so I think it's the history of what happened there and Shurecca's influence there. These kinds of things are things that I want every single week. It doesn't, I can't take that much for the script. The animation may be a smidge, but even then, these events have not historically had a lot of animation heavy related things. This is exactly what I want on a week to week basis, whether it's world building information or prequel information or something that flushes a character out. To me, it's just a huge swing and a miss when a new character comes out, and they really don't do anything in the Fireplane to really give you some kind of introduction to that character. They did it for a while for some with some of their weapons they released, but I feel like it's been a while since we saw one of these. So, two thumbs up. This is one of my big things I'm looking for going forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I want to know more.
That would, yeah. I mean, that's been one of our biggest complaints, especially from like a PVE standpoint in the game. You know, these story kind of additions to the events really haven't been there over the course of the 5 years of the game, or approaching 5 years of the game. So, I mean, you go into the archives, and you know it's only a handful of these story events that you can go back to, which you know over that length of time, you would expect there to be more investment.
Right. And actually, if I could just segue one other thing, because we've dumped on Gumi for so long, I actually want to also give them two thumbs up for introducing Shurecca at all. I think this is a wildly cool introduction to the game as a character. They did tease it for a while with Melnia, where they kind of alluded to the fact that Melnia was irregular. She obviously had like the Simulacra job, and there was like rumors that she came from somewhere weird and mysterious. But the whole lore behind Shurecca being like a catalyst sending Melnia into Leonis in these areas to generate enough bloodshed to awaken and you like cater the realm scourge. Like I don't think they needed to introduce her at all. I think you could have just said, "Hey, the realm scourge exists and it likes to kill things." I feel like that Final Fantasy has a precedent of like just doing that with some enemies. Like, hey, it just wants to kill things, it's just a thing. Take it or leave it. I love the fact that they introduced a character that's outside of anything we've ever seen before in the story to kind of add another layer into this like bigger picture of things. I didn't think it needed to happen, so I think it was a really nice addition that I'm really interested to know more.
I know that was one of your biggest wish list items. Was, you know, you don't want to see the fourth and fifth editions of the palette swaps or costume changes. You want to see new, interesting, and significant characters, and I think this one is right there. So
Ten thousand
two
percent.
thumbs up for that.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll cut things there for Shurecca. We'll keep moving on here. There's not a ton else to cover, but we'll still obviously go through things. The big community news, JB, I'll hand this off to you. The WBEL season 2. What do you want to highlight? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I'm not going to spoil the results of the match, but two of our guild, Howl, were in the final match of the WBEL season 2, which just wrapped up. I think the video came out just a couple of days ago. So um, definitely go check that out. You can search WBEL Votive on YouTube, and you can find that very easily. And yeah, Ram9 and Crashmaster from our guilds are representing in there in the final matches. And yeah, definitely go check that out. It is a special kind of, if you ever were familiar with WDL that Kason ran, it's very similar in spirit and setup, where you know there's a custom cost structure for the league, and you're only allowed so much cost for your units. So a lot of the older units and lower cost units do get highlighted on a weekly basis there, which is a lot of fun. And I was a shoutcaster in that league this year, so yeah, it's worth noting.
Love to hear it. I'm absolutely looking forward to it. These leagues, I think, are really healthy for the community, where it is a way for us to still keep older units relevant by reascribing costs for them and by limiting, like, it's almost like fantasy football, fantasy baseball, how you can only pick one unit per team per league in the sense that it forces you to spread out who you can use. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, so it's as a new strategy, you know, to the game, a new to different elements. So everything. I think that's War of the Visions is at its best when you're limited in some way, especially in cost.
Right, right. That's where the creativity comes out. That's where it's not just pure power creep. There's an element of that, but it's really more on the player, which is that's a nice feeling. Uh,
Exactly.
but yeah, from more other related PvP news in game, we are getting another week of don't no drum rolls, no drum rolls. We're not limited guild wars coming back. We're everyone calm down. But no limited guild war.
After we just complained about it a week or two ago.
Oh God. Oh, but we don't know anything about the cost structure yet. This happened last time too. They didn't announce ahead of time any rule sets for limited guild war, which I wish they did. I don't know why they don't, but regardless, they are getting the normal bonuses for new units. Fire, Wind, and Dark, and Warrior Book and Staff Black Mage are all getting map related bonuses. But we really can't talk about it much until we know the actual cost rules themselves. I'm sure it'll be, I don't know, some kind of unit cost at the minimum, but look forward to that. Um, I'll just keep going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there was a limited when Shrek came out in JP like that same week as well. And thinking back on it, I'm 100% positive there was a cost limitation. So it's probably going to be 240 or something like that. So kind of going back to that earlier question about Reflect, maybe we might be seeing some Nayas out there on the battlefield. That's always one of her nice abilities too.
Absolutely, absolutely. But in addition to that, we are getting the free match and arena 5 times medals again. Always like to call this out for the free match in particular, where this week alone will typically guarantee you enough medals that on the monthly reset you can go buy those Esper SP potions, the ones that allow you to expand your Esper boards. So next week in particular, when the reset, or 2 weeks, 2 days from now, absolutely do your free matches. That, or is it whenever you see it? 2 days from now or next week, whenever you see it, do it. That way, you know next month you can get those Esper potions. Those are huge for accumulating over time. And then class match is resetting, from my understanding, the way you phrased it, that the ladders are resetting. We are getting some of the rule sets around it. This is Grand Season 4 beginning, and it's cost 240 with nullifications of Haste, Confusion, and Toad. Um, so I have not given it any thought yet, my own teams and what I'm going to see, but I'm sure you're already 2 steps ahead here.
Yeah, so unfortunately, both Quicken and capabilities are on the table. I think I said this recently, but I don't like it when they don't split them up. It just especially for manual play, it makes it super challenging to have to account for both of those. But yeah, it's interesting that the season is going to be starting over. We've had, I think they usually go like 6 to 10 plus class matches before they do it. So you'll be able to proc the class rank up rewards and kind of get those again. So yeah, looking forward to that. I think it starts on the 26th, if I remember correctly.
Nice. Yeah, I like the reset, to be honest. I know there's probably a week or so of some weird matchmaking as people kind of realign their rankings. But, I see those opportunities as like quicker ways for you to get fresh starts. It's quicker ways for you to reaccumulate those rewards you get for ranking up. And it's like quicker copium for you to go from zero to top wherever you land up once again with more frequency than every couple months.
Yeah. Obviously I was on the top of the ladders here, so I'm gonna have to work my way back up there. But at least for me, like it's actually kind of a downgrade and rewards and until I get back up there. But
Right.
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple mention it in the chat about the compensation for the very long maintenance today on I guess the Square Enix bridge was having a problem, which impacts a ton of games, not just War of the Visions, but
Correct.
2600 viz I'm hearing was the compensation. So that is substantial. That is more than a pull.
That's incredible.
Um, yeah, so I think it's like 200 viz per hour that they compensated for us. So that's a good gesture from Gumi. So I'm happy about that.
I am very happy with that. That's one of those things that 2600 is not the difference between someone pulling a unit, maxing a unit, building a unit, reincarnating a unit. It's literally a pull. Now, maybe in the shop, sure, you can buy some things from the shop. But then again, if you're buying stuff in the shop that's viz that you're not using on your banners, I think to me that 2600 viz is a number that really doesn't affect Gumi's bottom line, but it's a real good. Oh, sorry, 1 second. It's sorry, it's a real good feel good thing for us because we really do feel the incremental tangible value of it.
Yeah, I mean, after the gauntlet that we've just been through, we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks of how many units and cards have come in. Yeah, getting a bump in Viz like that is certainly welcome.
Yeah. And so a couple of things we got news about is some quality of life updates from the front lines. I'll be honest, not groundbreaking, but hey, every little bit adds up over time. One of them is for the daily quest that, if you do your 5 arena matches, if you do a story quest, if you send your friend gifts, you have little treasure chests in the daily missions. Those are going to be auto collected now, where at the moment, currently, once you satisfy it, you have to actually click the treasure chest and then like click the OK on the rewards window. My understanding is that once you satisfy it, it's just going to kind of auto collect, which again, it's kind of like a click saver. um, okay, I'll take that one. I don't know if we have a lot to analyze or break down on that, but yeah, good.
I'm trying so hard to bite my tongue and not rip uh Gooby and Square for this Frontlines, but I'm gonna have to rip him on this
Oh,
because
let's go.
this Frontline is so weak. Like Frontlines 41, hey guys, check it out. You don't have to click 5 treasure chests anymore. That's it. See you
Yeah,
next time.
yeah,
And they're like, okay, next time. Okay, finally, after years and years since we added shards into the game, you don't have to manually change it now when you put a unit into the barracks.
right.
Okay,
Yeah,
like come on. Like
yeah.
this is they can't mention anything else in the front line. Like at least make it personal. Like I don't know. That's literally all that the front line said.
It's a
So
it's a
kind of
good take.
after the last couple of weeks, kind of talking about the lack of overall communications, this rubbed me the wrong way. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I like that. No, it's a good take. I know. Yeah, the other one you alluded to is in the barracks that JP and shards are going to both be accumulated at the same time rather than one over the other. I'll be honest. I don't think it's going to make a huge dent for some players because the uh, system of transferring JP and the keys that people still have remaining to accumulate that likely are still enough for units to kind of be built with ease, particularly veteran accounts where most units are built up. But for people that really do still slow build in their barracks, I think it's a nice quality of life that by the time the unit is usable, because you've got enough shards, you don't have to worry about JP at that point because you've been accumulating JP the whole time it's been built. So I think for those players, I think it's a really nice quality of life. For us, I don't think it really does anything.
They didn't mention anything about it, but I would hope that they would increase the amount of JP that you actually get while you're in there to actually make it worthwhile that it even exists.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, if you have your unit in there for months, maybe at that point you have a significant amount of JP, but just like on a daily basis, it seems very, um, very negligible. So
Yeah. Yeah. Can I don't want to put us on the spot because this is a question we didn't discuss ahead of time. From the quality of life perspective, is there anything on your personal checklist still that you'd like to see in game from like a quality of life update of like a pain point in the menus or systems for you?
I mean, to be honest, this treasure chest thing was probably pretty high up there. Like just having to click those and there's like the animation that happened. You have to wait like 5 seconds when you're just trying to go on with your day. But I just think like as that was the only thing, like it just feels very minute. Like when I don't know.
Yeah.
Um I if you have one, go ahead. I haven't
Yeah.
really thought of it.
I have two. I that immediately come
Mhm.
to mind. Number one is still, and I'll never stop saying this. Toggles for your TMR that needs to be in the game yesterday. It's devastating when you go in a guild war and your TMR is on when you want it to be off, but it's on because you needed it for the arena earlier that day. Devastating in how much that toggle screws up various types of content. That toggle for game mode for TMR and Esper, we noticed this a couple weeks ago in limited guild war, I think it was, where we had Esper toggles that needed to be on or off. Those need to be by game mode like every other toggle. I don't know why those still aren't a thing, and they have actual gameplay ramifications that it's not in there. So that's still my priority number
It's a
one.
great one.
Yeah. My other one that I've kind of come around to as of late, I think the summon banner screen needs to be collapsed or reorganized a bit. I memed on it last week with sort of Convallaria and RNJ made that video about too many banners at once. Today you can't go in right now because the game's down. There are 36 to 40 banners in the summon screen right now. That is absurd, absolutely absurd. There has to be a better way to have like some kind of drill down where like it's the FF8 banners, it's the global banners, it's the new unit banners, and if you click in you can kind of see there's just absolutely no feasible way you can drop 36 banners in one single scroll and hope for any player to know heads or tails what to pull on. I think that's a travesty that it even gets to that point.
I agree with that. Actually, one that I had been thinking about before that came to mind, and somebody in chat reminded me of it. Absolutely, the slider for the Chocobo tickets.
Yes.
When you're trying to bang out, they if I forget when they upgraded it, but we can now use like a ton of tickets per day, like 30 of them. Um, so yeah, just being able to pick exactly how many you want to use rather than just clicking over and over again would be another very welcome change.
Thank you. I like that. And my last one. This is a personal one, because we're such stat guys. This is actually a good conversation. We can talk about this as time goes on. One of my biggest pet peeves in the game, that as the game has gotten more complex with the amount of attributes, active, not active at any given time, if you are in the menu and you click the magnifying glass to look at a character's attributes, you can see all the things that are active at this time. Slash attack up, debuff weakening up, fire res up, whatever it is. None of them have numerical value attached to them. If it says slash attack up, fuck if I know how much it is. Could be 10, could be 200. I need that menu to tell me how much is actually active at that time. I think it's a travesty right now, and that menu is actually like worthless in many regards, that you can't quantify the attribute of what's actually happening in the game. It's clearly in the game. It's not like some hidden code. The game knows how much is in that menu. That they need the numerical value there, and there's so much that I think you could learn there. And you would need stuff like Word of Stats or even like a pen and paper to like write down all the stuff that you have active. I think as the game has gotten complex, that needs to be there to compensate for it.
That and like some of the stats that are still not shown, which is like the true accuracy, true evasion,
Another good one.
um, stuff like that.
Yeah. Right, because the game is complex. That to me is one of those things that will alleviate some of the complexity because it's going to be less noise. It's going to be more meaningful information. Even if it's a lot of information, it's there already. At least make it valuable.
Oh, I have one other good one,
Hit it.
and this kind of goes hand in hand, like with the tool that I built for the vision cards,
Hmm.
and it's a point on the filtering in the game, which they took a first step and they kind of added a bunch of filters for the jobs and things like that. But you should be able to multi-select so that you can see overlap better between
Hmm.
two different jobs that you want to look at. So I want to select knight and I want to select warrior. I want to select greatsword and I want to select black mage. And rather than just picking one of those and kind of shifting through them. So I would love to see that as well.
I agree with you 100%. The code for that is not difficult either. I have that in an Excel file. It's a filter function that just you're able to put in two characters and it tells you what they share in common. I think I've seen some fan made things online where you put in the two classes and like that's not a difficult coding thing. I can't imagine that the graphical update would be anything different either. It's just a different kind of filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems very easy.
Yep, good one. So Gumi, Justin, for anyone who uses that, I think there's some good ones to throw in the backlog. Hopefully, can eventually get to them. I think those are ones that the fan base would truly appreciate and would help really be quality of life things. But that brings us next to our JP news, and so one of the noteworthy characters released as of late. Screw. Let's talk about the collaboration first. Everyone's excited for this. No one's excited for Lilith. Let's be real. So we at this morning had the JP live stream go on, and they announced the Trials of Mana collaboration, which the Mana what do you want to call it series is actually getting a new title in the next 2 weeks. I think it's the Visions of Mana. Very popular in JP. It's more of a nostalgia pick, I think, for some of us here in the states and across the ocean. I've only played Legend of Mana myself, which is a beautiful game, and I'm a massive fan of the aesthetic and the world and everything about Mana. I really know nothing about Trials of Mana though, so all of these characters are I'm seeing for the first time. So I think JP is very happy about it. I don't think Global is going to have nearly the same response. But at the end of the day, I think you could probably make the same case for even Dragon Quest, where it's probably not one where a lot of us know intimately, and didn't change the fact that everyone pulled for Sorrow anyway. So yeah,
I think that's a great, and I think that's a great anecdote there, where obviously Dragon Quest, an immense property over in JP, and not so much for us. For me, I never played Legend of Mana. I never have played Trials of Mana. I played Secret of Mana back on the Super Nintendo, and that was kind of, again, I loved the aesthetic. It's a beautiful game with the, even back then, like the very very nice sprites, and obviously it's a very colorful game too. I think that is one of the main kind of aesthetics that you can point to in all of the Mana games. Very colorful and light palette. So I really like that about it. My main interaction with these characters actually is from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, where
smart.
they've had a ton of Mana collaborations as well. And Angela was a meta unit in FFBE, as kind of a huge magic DPS like finisher in the Neovision era. So I know that about her. And Duran was he was a terrible unit. So
Yeah,
he
yep.
was also a tank, I think, though, in that game. And he is going to be at least somewhat of it, at least an off tank. It sounds like he has some hate. So yeah, he is going to be the free unit, I guess, too.
Yeah, he's a wind unit. I was just gonna say I was looking off to my side here. It's here somewhere. Fun story. I went to Harvard with my girlfriend like a year or two ago, just to like tour the campus. And across from the campus, they have like a Harvard bookstore. That's just like a fun little touristy whatever. And it's really quaint, really small. Went down into the basement, and we're just kind of like dumpster diving with like these books on sale and this and that. And they have this big table in the middle, and what do you know? Right in the middle is this enormous, it's like the size of the War of the Visions art book. It's a Legend of Mana art book there in the basement of the Harvard
Oh,
library.
wow.
I was like, what the fuck? I bought it. It's incredible, but I thought that was the oddest
That,
spot to find.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's super random.
Yeah, very random. But yeah, back on topic here, Duran is the wind unit. He is being given out for free. He does seem to have those tank attributes where he's got a hate up ability. We do have, the idea that he's going to be of sword warrior or sword knight. I don't think sword red mage really needs another character like him. Although wouldn't hurt, I guess. I wouldn't be the end of the world if he got thrown in there. But I think Sword Warrior and Sword Knight is in far more dire need of an additional unit like him. I haven't memorized all of these yet, quite frankly, and there's so much to still remember here. From what I can tell, though, there is a little bit of new tech being woven into some of them in the combination of some of their buffs. Did anything stick out to you so far in terms of what you saw from any of the three of them, or even Duran, if we want to go one by one?
Yeah, well, let's try to tackle it one by
Yeah.
one. So he's a unit based character. So the LB is a 3 target. Um,
I'm rereading this too,
or
but
no,
yeah,
no,
he's
no, no. It's 3 turn
pretty
self
turn.
attack up, 2 hit damage XL, and then a 1 turn stun. So I'm guessing that's a single target ability, but does have the stun on there. So it's pretty. It's kind of whatever. The second ability though looks quite nice, which it is a courage removal for select 2 courage removal. It then gives the 3 turn single target res down, so it's probably going to be a 60% shred to their unit resistance, and then a damage absorption 50% probably.
Mhm.
So that's a very very nice ability, especially on a tank, especially to get that kind of debuff going out there from and kind of get some some compression there out of that slot.
Yep.
We don't know of any aura, which is kind of one of the main functions of a tank nowadays. So I'm assuming if he doesn't have an aura, his damage is gonna, be upped to compensate for that lack of capability.
I agree with that. Yeah, the rest of this, the survivability is the physical barrier. Looks like an HP amount. 4 turn honeycomb barrier, which I'm sure we're going to see more and more of, and we'll probably see the counterplay still come in for it. He's got the self heal, some AP restore on that ability. I'm sure it'll be like 15 or 20 AP for each buffer for 2 turns, whatever that may be. And then almost Veritas of the Earth like here, where it's like defense pen up and some elemental chain or some type chain up and down mechanics. So there's a lot of utility baked in here. really too early to make any predictions. It looks good on the ability itself and the survivability certainly there. We just don't know enough to really make any statements because we don't know the class or the stats.
I mean, typically the free units have been pretty decent. So I mean, especially like at a 100 cost, they haven't been known to skimp on the power level. Like look at Bart's, like he was an excellent unit,
Yep.
lasted for a long time into the game.
Yep.
So
Good call up.
I'm expecting this to be a good solid unit and worth building. But yeah, we need to see more details.
I agree. And Angela looks to be uh was it staff devout we were guessing? She wields a staff, but we really don't know. Could be staff black mage also, but that whatever it is. She does have passives for AoE res pen and magic wide res. Her limit breaks the magic barrier break. It's also a triple hit. Some AP reduction and slow. We've seen a couple units come in with slow on their limit breaks that have been very good because they're typically that 67% chance, which really not much counterplay, if any, to it. I know Nivlu and JP was big for that. Addison Ray was big for that. Summer Jaden on his limit break was big for that. I'm sure this will kind of fit into that category. She does have also some additional remove AoE wide res on some non-elemental damage, which is kind of nice to see back in the fold. I know we just saw Shurecca, who has one ability, but it has been a little while that we've seen typeless attacks, which do have value at the moment just for the fact that it doesn't consider enemy elemental resistance at all. So it is kind of like a different form of damage up. And yeah, agility up. There's a whole extra here: shell removal, haste removal, whole bunch of good stuff. So she looks like a good addition. Obviously, it's gonna depend on the class and the numbers.
Yeah, it sounds like she has some anti-magic capability there with that second skill, which looks like a buff. She has like a magic damage reduction, it sounds like. Looks like she can remove shell as well. Uh, Looks like she removes magic damage reduction, which is significant. We were just saying that Gilgamesh was the only unit that has been able to do that thus far. So that actually sounds very, very tough, especially if you are able, if she is a black mage and can link up with Shrek. That sounds like a pretty nasty two woman combo. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think out of the three, this one sounded the most compelling, at least just on the basic details that are known so far.
I agree. And then the Crimson Wizard looks to be a glove unit, which, haven't seen one of those in a little while, but certainly not still confirmed, but that's what it appears to be. That he's got re-raised, the limit break is some damage up. It's a sure hit. It's one of those damage scaling depending upon how many enemies are in it, but he's also got a Spirit Imperil on the abilities. It's also another form of sure hit. When his HP is below a certain threshold, he can heal, and there's buffs associated with that HP threshold as well. Reaction block breakdown. I'm not gonna lie, I almost get like Roy Mustang vibes a little bit from him, in the fact that there seems to be a lot of sure hit, which is kind of like Roy Mustang's high accuracy component. Roy didn't have sure hit, but it was very reliable hit. And then the amount of chains it seems to be. There seems to be a couple chains kind of scattered in here. The magic barrier break is nice. Yeah, looks to be an interesting unit.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that the glove class as a whole, the kind of the hallmarks that they've been building into that job have been anti-evasion, like in some way, even kind of going back to the original glove units of Garvel
Marvel.
and Salir, having the AoE sure
Yes.
hit attacks
Yeah.
and kind of the physical barriers. So like that class has always seemed to have that kind of baked in, and it sounds like he has that too. He's got a sounds like he has a heal back, like a self heal there. That's kind of a significant one. And yeah, it sounds like he's going to be either highly accurate, but if he isn't, he does have a couple of sure hits here that he can leverage.
Yeah, it looks like three of them. I think three might be the most shards we've seen in a kit. We've seen two for certain, but his limit break is one, and then those top and bottom abilities are one. That's a lot. Um,
That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
we didn't mention either. Angela is a dark unit. I thought that was very interesting. That throw her into the fold for dark. And Crimson Wizard is obviously a fire unit. We were talking pre-podcast a little bit about the element choices. The wind is really no surprise. That's an element that's like really undertuned. But even Dark is, to be honest, too. And Cypher was a great addition, but he can't save that element by himself. But Angela as another dark unit, And Raph is still very serviceable, that there could be some mono dark plays on the table here still. And I really thought it was interesting, it was another fire unit, given that Summer Resnick is obviously fire, and Sephiroth certainly has no problems, buffing fire on his own. I think to me that's still a very interesting choice, because I think they're trying to intentionally still give Joom a little bit of value as a water unit, that they don't want to completely move away from the power creep already. They want to still give her a niche of sorts, because water as a class, Summer Glassy is still S tier, as everyone knows, but um, outside of the two of them, water is not the Faris is not the same unit she was a while ago, and there are still some holes in water. So I think they're giving water a little bit more of a niche. You have pointed out time and time again the Veritas of the water unit, which is a great call out. So I'm glad you keep bringing her to the forefront, because she's an anti-magic unit. So what better time than now if you're going to see Shurecca and Angela to bring her back into the fold? So I think Gumi's really trying to give Fire that strength, just to kind of like A, keep ice in check, but B, also give some inherent value to water while we have that window of opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's, based on, 2 out of the 3 collab units here being magic focused, if we weren't already headed for like a heavy magic meta, where this collab will certainly cement that, building off what Shrek and Gilgamesh have brought into the game, Resnick and Luciel. And I think that, like you said, mono dark could certainly be, in play. Like if you came into the game and been big on Seifer, Angela, if she ends up being a, black mage, will pair very, very well with warrior too, on top of the elemental synergy. So yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of find out more as we hear it.
Yeah, and that's all we know. There are 3 vision cards that were teased. We know the artwork of. One of them could be kind of the generic one they give out that isn't really like PvP oriented. It's more of like a, you know, I don't know, all element attack up kind of card that maybe is more for PvE. But 3 vision cards, even if they are full regular to the walls vision cards, those are certainly always intriguing, because they do have some balance ramifications, and collabs have historically had some of the most banger vision cards in the game. You think of the VV vision card, the Cloud vision card, the Tifa vision card that just came out. Like, collabs are the Sorrow vision card for Fire with Dragon Quest. The collabs have always tended to have some very noteworthy power creep related vision cards. So very excited to see what they come out with those.
Yeah. I don't know if they commented if they all 3 were going to be gotcha or if any of them were free.
Yep.
I'm guessing since we're getting a 100 cost Duran here for free, that those 3 are probably going to be, you're probably going to have to pull all 3 of them.
Yeah.
if you want all 3.
I would tend to agree, but we'll keep moving here because we are nearing that hour mark. But you did want to go over a
Oh,
little.
one
Oh,
one
sorry, go ahead.
one quick thing, kind of on, piggybacking on the collab announcement there. Apparently, there was some mention of Final Fantasy Tactics in the JP live stream, which
Yes.
was huge news for me, because I didn't watch the live stream. I only kind of heard that after the fact. I think KT7 Up and some other people had posted about it. I think though, at least from what their comments say, I don't think it's going to be new units, but they are going to be brushing up the old ones. But even if that's the case, still I'm on board with it, assuming that they brush them up enough that they can compete.
Yeah. I mean,
So
we've caught. I mean, it's no surprise. Every player here has been asking for it. We've been scratching our heads why we have not gotten anything on it, considering that it looks to be a very easy moneymaker, a very easy way to bring in old players once again, because those are always the draw of this game. The fact that they publicly confirmed that they're looking into it, to me, is a big signaling thing, because it means they've heard us and they're looking at it. If they just never mention it again, then it's one of those things that's like, it just becomes copium and drivel after a while, if you know what I mean.
yeah, definitely. So that gave me some hope that, I was hoping that we would see some new units. I'm going to still hope that maybe they'll, save that as a surprise, but there will at least see something Final Fantasy Tactics, within the next, several months here. Maybe for the 5th anniversary. We'll
Yeah,
see.
absolutely. But yeah, that we have some 70 cost news. Lilith is released here, where Ramada came out a couple weeks ago and unfortunately looks to have underwhelmed at first glance. And Lilith is coming in instead as a 70 cost unit, not a 100 cost unit. She is part of the Sword Warrior group as a light unit. We won't spend a ton of time diving deep into her. She does strike me initially here as kind of like a, I don't want to say a brawl oriented character, but there's a lot of like damage debuffing aspects to her kit where one of her big things is upon hit, slash attack down on enemies, and that is combined with one of her main select twos. So she will, on a select two, decrease enemy slash attack by 70 modifier, which is pretty noteworthy. That number is big enough. I did some approximations. That can be anywhere from 20 to 25% damage reduction on slash attack units. She does also come with this 30% attack and magic break, and her limit break, which is another select two, is a decrease of slash res pen. So on the one hand, I'm really not a fan because kind of like the Fire Veritas, it seems a little bit too niche for me in that the main value is an anti-slash. Then again, it's a 70 cost unit, so what are you really trying to expect? But I like that they're at least trying to take that angle. There's certainly more to her than just that, where she comes with the 30 unit res pen like we just saw with Shurecca. So that's a really nice damage component. It's also Dispel Auto Revive on a different attack here. It's got a light impairment of 30%. So there's a lot of good stuff in here as a 70 cost unit that I think it is a really good 70 cost unit. I would put this unit under the niche category though initially for me, just what I know of it.
I think in the ideal scenario, Gumi Square, they want these 70 cost units to be a competitive advantage. They don't want them to be a meta
Yeah,
defining unit. They don't want the Lucio, how they don't want Halloween Lucio necessarily to be a meta unit for months and months.
right.
They don't want the Halloween Lucia to be meta for months and months. Because at that point it's taking away their sales from the months after those units come out. So this unit, I think it's like a properly rated like 70 constitution. Obviously has some nice capabilities, but obviously some very glaring weaknesses. I think that her kit is very fragmented. Like, yeah, she can debuff nicely, but it is across several different attacks at that point. And
Exactly.
can you even last long enough into the fight to get out multiple attacks? And the answer is
Probably
probably not.
not. Yeah.
So I think that I think there is more than meets the eye to this unit, and I think that if you can pick her up for hopefully they have the 18,000 Viz step up for the guaranteed pull. At that point, I would say she's probably worth grabbing. But if it's like a 40K situation like the Ashen Warriors were, then I would say definitely not.
No, I do get flashbacks a little bit to the Winter Wrath unit, who was strictly like came in at a time of a very heavy magic meta. And I think the window here for um oh my god, Lilith is closing faster than will prove to be a value like Winter Wrath was. Where Winter Wrath came in and immediately was like, no, this is a properly timed release to be used at a time where you really needed the anti magic. I think obviously with Shurecca being released, but we are already seeing the magic starting to like change a little bit. The shelf life of this unit won't be the same.
Yeah, I think that out of all the units that are in the meta currently, she holds up the best against Gilgamesh. I would say that she can significantly cut into his damage, and she's got like the nice innate barrier, the debuff weakening, and all these things. The thing is, like in another month from now, are we going to be seeing as much Gilgamesh? That remains to be seen. So her value in the game, I think, is kind of commensurate with how much Gilgamesh is being played and who he's being played with, because obviously the other two units could be, significant counters against her.
Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. It's a 70 cost unit. I think it's a general thumbs up, but I don't think anybody should be excited for it, if that makes sense.
Kind of disappointing for me because I absolutely love Lilith
Me
and
too.
I was looking forward to this unit.
Same.
And for her to be kind of meh is it's a bummer. I'll be honest. She
I
is
I
only a
agree.
70 cost though, so I can at least get her theoretically on the cheap.
Same. Yeah, no, I've always been a Lilith lover. She's one of my, if I were ranking waifus in the game, she's probably number one, maybe number two. The sad thing is that she's never really been good in any iteration. Summer Lilith, the archer, was very niche, not a good unit. You know, what can you say about that? The MR unit was also exceptionally niche. I don't really think I ever saw play. So this to me, like Ramada, who has also had several iterations. Uh, it strikes me as odd given the fact that they're so beloved by the fan base and that they really are lore what the word prominent characters. They're Mont's right and left hand generals. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's
Yeah.
an odd choice to not make their power level correspond a little bit to their status within the lore. And meanwhile, you get units like I don't know, fucking Alaya, who's just busted. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she's a popular lore, but yeah,
It looks like Plummeted Minds in the chat says that she was guaranteed on the 9-step 18K. I think it's 18K, right? Or is
yeah.
there used to be, I think, maybe free steps at one point, but not bad. 18K free viz for a decent unit.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll segue here now and keep moving things along to the I don't even know what we're gonna call this. But we figured a little walk down nostalgia lane. We'll try to do this every once in a while. We got 20 names here of year one units. We don't have all of them. Obviously, there's entirely too many, but thought it'd be a time we'll spin the wheel. We'll try to quick hit go through some of these because we don't want to we want to get through as many as we can, but just talk about a fun memory we have with them or something we like about the character or really anything positive to say about them whatsoever. Anything else you want to add on to what we're about to do here, or is that it?
No, I think the thought behind this was we've had some heavy conversations here the last couple of weeks. A lot of tough love for the developers and game runners. Figured let's just wax nostalgia for a little bit and have a little bit of fun this week.
Love it. So we have Motley. I won't even read them. You guys can see them here. Whatever. Just we're gonna spin whatever it is. It is
Spin it to win it.
spin it to win it.
This is right on brand for a gotcha game here.
Yep. Ooh, Skahal? No, Ayaka.
Oh,
Wow.
Ayaka.
Well, this
So
is
why don't you lead it off first?
God. One of my favorite memories of her is probably just um not doing well with her in the initial manual play of the game. I gave manual a shot, obviously in the first year of the game, and she was one of the first reasons why I started to hate manual because at that time I felt that you needed tank hate in the game to really make the roles actually function as they're intended to function. Because in manual play, you can pick and choose obviously who you attack. You can just walk right by the Engelbert. And I remember I had so much excitement. You know, I have my Engelbert, I got my Ayaka, and meanwhile, you know, she's there, and I don't really know how to play. I don't know what I'm doing, and she would just get absolutely demolished in like the first hit of manual play, and there it goes. That I very much remember being like, well, this isn't for me because they're obviously not letting her live. That's like my first early on memory, but I love this unit because she did have like several spurts of reusage within wind and whatnot. So yeah, I like her from FFBE. Obviously, very old, well renowned unit.
Yeah, so Ayaka was an OG like from day one of the game. She was in there. I had her on my initial roll of the that I went with during the reroll fest when the game launched. And this unit was kind of a practice in AI for the game where at that point in the game we couldn't disable abilities, and
Great.
she was notorious that you if you took the immobilize ability in the node tree, she would just spam that and she would kind of go after enemies, and that was like a huge problem for her AI. She also had like the whole protect and shell thing where
Right.
she would just sit there spamming protect and shell and spamming haste on herself, and she wouldn't get out of the spawn. So this was like a unit that you really had to rein in her AI there early. So yeah, it was interesting.
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll keep spinning the wheel here. Number two for the unit coming up here is Venera, the OG dark
Venera.
dagger wielding unit. Um, this was like one of the original waifus. I know a lot of fans liked her. very lore prominent. I think one of my favorite memories was simply just seeing how VIP was using her during the evade meta. That I remember this was the first time I'd ever seen a unit use the, oh, what's the evade dagger? The one that's in the general shop. Uh
Oh shoot, I can't even remember the name of it. The
Chet
main gauche.
the main gauche. VIP had a build with Venera using the main gauche and a fun TMR wrinkle that I remember it being such a big brain thing to see this Venera optimized this way. That was when we got the Maidens of the Rose vision card. So that was really a fun time to like see her kind of pop in a way that we really weren't anticipating. But I'll pause it. That's kind of my, if we want to keep this short and sweet.
Man, that main gauche brings back some memories. I remember seeing it in the shop and never seeing it anywhere else, and that kind of triggered me. Okay, maybe I should be spending my gil on this, and I kind of was getting that, and then the frost brands very early on, like in the first couple weeks of the game,
Yep.
because back then you had to like refresh the shop all the time to buy shards. Thankfully, we don't we don't have to do that anymore. But Venera was, yeah, huge waifu, huge a lot of things. But yeah, she was a great unit. She, gave a lot of units fits because her evasion, even to this day, is still very, very strong. She had the shadow cast from Thief, huge mobility, which again with the AI ended up being like a tuning or learning thing for folks with using her in battle where she would kind of go out and potentially get baited and run out of AP very quickly. I think she was one of the original units to have defense penetration in the game. I think her and Lucia
Lucia.
were
Yeah.
kind of introduced that mechanic. And that was huge for cutting into Engelbert, who, if you didn't have Mediana or some of those, magic units, you weren't doing anything to Engelbert. So
Yep.
yeah, very good memories there.
I love it. We'll give the wheel another spin here. And next unit up on the chopping block for Walk Down Memory Lane. Oh, is it going to stop in time here? It No, it's going to be Yayak again. Well,
We'll just call it Skahal.
we'll call it Skahal because it's just ticked by him. For me, Skahal, I remember he was not hyped at all because Howlet was on the same banner that week, OG Wind Howlet. And I always thought it was the funniest thing about Skahal how they introduced him to the game, never really told you who he was, and they literally killed him off in the prequel story that he was released with, that he literally died before the main storyline quest and really had no bearing on anything in the lore or trickle down ramifications of the series. Obviously, Guga and what's the other, whatever the other Ninja Shinobi faction was,
Saiga.
Saiga. There's obviously a long running lore history between the two of them, but Skahal never really plays into that other than Mia just proving why she's such a dastardly double crosser time and time again. But I thought that was hysterical that they introduced him and just killed him immediately. We never get to know him. Yeah.
So my kind of initial memories from Skahal, like obviously we think of Skahal a lot differently now than back then. Like he became a meta unit, kind of had a second life through an incredible MA upgrade later on, and they really kind of overcompensated because he was really nothing in the game for the longest time. But I did pull him on his initial release, because I pulled everything, but
Damn.
for he actually had a niche in manual even back then because he has the time mage sub job.
Right.
So, which not everybody got quicken in the time mage sub job, but he did. So he was an offensive character who could also do haste and quicken, and that kind of gave him a small kind of manual niche for a while. And that he still has that today. So yeah, kind
Love
of
it.
a fun unit.
He is. He's actually a great unit, lore wise. I actually enjoy him very much. I think he's. I wish he had some other relevancy. The next one here looks like Mediana, who we were just mentioning a second ago. One of the original OG must pull units of the game. She was the barrel of sort of Convallaria to us
Yeah.
here. Obviously, was one of the very first like pull her because she's a great farming unit for PVE and stage clearing capabilities. And really was one of the first like nukers of sorts with how large her ice imperil was, and obviously she's completely gone by the wayside. She's an FFBE transplant. So yeah, early on, I don't think I ever really used her in the way that many people did. I had her and I maxed her, but I never really got the full benefit of her. But yeah, fun to think back on her fondly. Yeah.
So a lot of these early units for me like trigger a lot of manual PvP memories because that when all these when the game first launched, it was like the height of COVID, height of lockdowns. The manual scene at that point was like absolutely amazing and fun, and everybody was learning it, and kind of the queues were instant. It's hard to even describe at this point because of what it's become, but back then, like in those first like 6 to 12 months of the game, it was incredible. And Mediana was one of the best manual units that you could have in the game because at that point, the main sort of manual PvP was the free match where you could just go in and queue against random people, and it was just on like the original arena map that you would play it on, which was very small, and you'd be lined up right across from the other person. You couldn't do initial positioning. I don't even think back then. Maybe you could, but even if you did, like she had a bunch of mobility, and she could just come in and nuke you with her huge diamonds, ice plume or whatever. So yeah, it had the imperil for the ice resistance, and it would just kill everybody in one shot. So yeah, that was lots of memory. I never built her back then, but definitely faced her all the time. She was used by a lot of folks.
Does memory serve me correctly that she was the one in manual play was like a poison mist angle? You would like
Yes,
you would YOLO into the team and poison mist AoE everybody and just yeah, have fun with that.
with the quickener. So you would start the quicken. You would get do the poison mist. She had the 4 movements, so she could actually move up to 10 squares with the poison mist, and then just nuke you with another 5 or 6 range or whatever is on
Oh,
her ice plume.
that's
So
awesome.
it was devastating back then. You couldn't get away from it.
Good stuff. Or not good stuff. Sounds terrible.
Her agility was also very good because she had the ninja sub job.
It was. It was. We got Mashari Horn, the original light unit here. I'll be honest. I've always had a bit of copium for her, where I wanted to make her work for so long. She was like one of the most confused built units ever, though, where her limit break was really bad. Didn't it scale off physical damage? I think it was like a strike attack. It was not even magic
Yeah.
scaling. It was really awful, and a lot of single target. The AI was atrocious when the reincarnation system came out. She was one of the first units that I threw 10 reincarnations into because I was like, I want to use this unit so bad. And they've tried to make a bunch of improvements over time. I don't know if I have fond things to say about her other than thank you for your TMR, because the Mashri TMR is like S tier. It's one of the best things in the game.
I gotta pour one out for the folks. I don't know if you remember it, but there was a paid bundle back when the game launched where you could get Mashiri as the unit. And I forget. I think it was like 6K paid or something for a Mashiri. Um, and I know people bought that because she was obviously like a main character in the story. Obviously, she looks great, and but absolutely, out of all those units in the first batch, I think that she was one of the worst units.
Yeah.
Like you said, her LB, if not the worst, her LB was atrocious with the physical damage. Like you said, her AI to this day is still very bad, but back then it was even worse because you couldn't disable anything.
Yep.
She's just spamming buffs and doing no damage, and yeah, awful. She was the original TMR unit. Like you got her for the TMR, and she rode the bench for eternity.
Yep. I will say she's one of the few, well, I'll call it like female secondary protagonists. I actually like her lore wise. I don't get damsel in the distress vibes from her. Even in this last arc where she kind of was resigned to like being in bed just giving birth, if you know what I mean. Like it's like one of the most uh like away from the battlefield things you could do to her. I still think she's a great character overall.
Yeah, she is a great character. She's been yeah, one of
Yeah,
my favorites too.
yeah. We'll do a couple more here. We've already done 5, but then we got a couple more to get through potentially. Looks like it's gonna end. Oh, we're getting another Ayaka. We'll keep
Do it
doing.
again.
Do it
It
again.
keeps going to Ayaka.
Remove. We're taking her out. Actually, I don't know why I didn't hit remove already. I can remove him
Quit
from the
quit
pool,
pulling Ayaka.
right? No, it's not. It's not going to stop on him, is it? Oh, okay, okay.
Stern.
Stern, the OG Dark Stern. I missed out on him the first time. I know he was one of the best physical DPS to potentially pull. I did miss the boat on him. Just you can only pull so many units. I think the only fond memory I have is the fact that seeing him in the manual PvP tournaments of people using him Dragoon level 1 and letting him sit in the air for so long. I really never knew Stern for anything good other than that, and I never really knew him for anything that I've ever used. He, yeah, very niche as a unit, so I don't have much of a history with him, just which is odd because I have kind of a history with every unit. He's one of the few that I just kind of never spent any time with.
So yeah, so Stern, he was a pretty big manual unit as well. He was never really got off in the auto scene. He didn't have any defense penetration, and the, everybody ran Engelbert back then in the first few months of the game. So he immediately fell behind in the damage department. But he was the him and Gilgamesh were the original two units that I built to 99 on my account. They were a couple of the first featured units in the game. But yeah, I used him in manual quite a bit. He's got poison mist and four movement from Ninja also, so huge mobility. Um, yeah, and he was fairly evasive and could do a bunch of damage with Shuriken back then.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we'll keep this going along here. And yeah, unfortunately, guys, it's not all the year one units. We could only fit, 20. There's not even any MRs here other than Mott. Oh, this is a good one. Eld Leonis. Uh, Another putridly terrible character for most of the game. Really not even of his own fault. Fire was just disgustingly bad for the first year or two of this game. I had a little bit of copium actually when I was trying to use him during the Final Fantasy X banner where the Ice Bros, the original Ice Bros, Orin and Gilgamesh, the two of them, there was a lot going on there that I finally found some anti-ice upside with Leonis. They've made I'll be honest, a bunch of like good improvements, I think, to really like solidify the role he initially was supposed to have. But yeah, this is a unit that just dying for AP and the damage was never really there and very slow and just not a great unit.
If Mashiri was the worst unit in the game back then, Eld was right
Right
behind
there,
her.
right behind.
Like I didn't even build this unit, I think, until recently, because he was literally one of the last units I had left to level up out of all of them in the game. But Lancer was absolutely the worst launch job, in my opinion. He's gotten some nice upgrades over time that kind of, and obviously the job revisions make it look differently than it did back then. But his LB, he wouldn't even use it
Right,
in auto back then.
right.
He had a useless limit burst for the barrier and a kind of hate component. And yeah, his damage was bad. Like he was awful in any way you slice it back then.
I remember
I think,
his 120 ability. Do you remember this? Increase the
yeah,
modifier if there's 5 dead units. Excuse me? If there's 5 dead units? Gumi, when? Like what? PVE? Like what is the point of this? Sorry.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
awful. All right.
Even his TMR isn't very good.
Oh wait, can I push back on that? I've used the TMR a couple times. The
Really?
TMR, Sorrow meta. I like this a lot because it had one of the higher evade stats possible for an accessory, and 35% HP is actually like semi noteworthy back then. Where I remember Sorrow used to go from like 9,000 HP to like 10,500. It was like a 1,500 HP. That was a noteworthy bump for an evade unit proportionally wise. I don't use it anymore, but this used to be a good stat stick for me for the evasion.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, this is a good one. I'm really glad we talked about this.
Frederica, nice.
Frederica. Definitely fond memories on the old like mountain maps where like you had the big cavern and Miss Lametta with what she did. But I think my favorite memory is again another VIP build when Lightning from 13 came out, and I think it was Cloud that came out. We had a absolutely disgustingly killer wall of bringing Frederica back that didn't exist in JP. I can't remember who built that team, but it was Lightning from 13 Cloud, and it was just this like missile barrage of aimed fire, and you just couldn't live through it. And Frederica was obviously part of that with barrage and what she could do for the AoE damage and the range up and the missile attack up. It's a fun unit.
That
I'm
was
not.
during the dark meta, during
Yes,
Joker, Leela. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that.
yeah. That I'm glad you do. Um, I'm not a big fan of her lore wise. It's not really my style of her personality. I think it's funny to be honest. I love her interactions with Engelbert. But this unit had a lot of good play over the years. I'm happy that she's kind of sunsetted, but we'll see. Yeah, I like her.
She was one of my favorite characters, and very early on, she was one of our first banners. I think maybe the first or second banner that we ever got. I think it was maybe Miranda and then Frederica that came right after her. So yeah, very like the first month or the second month of the game. She the large diamond AoEs were very rare at that point in the game.
Yes.
So her that barrage ability, it was very expensive, but we had, Z's bells. So that was, the ranger units kind of you set them up with bells and then they were good to go. It could throw down all those barrages. I have a pretty nice memories of like one of the first limited battles with kind of the stairs on both sides. And then like it was like the Kane and Dwayne map. But I had a fun team with Nivlu and Luartha and Frederica, and nobody could make it over to my side of the map with the quickens, and then
That's right.
Luartha would just kind of clean up whoever was trying to come across the middle. Yeah, amazing unit, amazing manual unit. She was a menace with the quicken, double barrage for a very long time.
Had to be. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Barrage was. I remember the day when I finally saw it and it wasn't that good and it was like mind blowing. Where it was like, wow, the game's really changed. Like Barrage just isn't
Yeah,
good anymore. It was an eye opener.
yeah.
No. But we'll do one more here just because we are at the 10th result out of 20. And again, we'll keep doing this, but this is kind of just like a fun way to look back on some other units. Oh, oh, come on.
It's Gilgamesh.
It's Gilgamesh. It's the OG Gilgamesh. What a good one to end on. Yes, the OG Ice Gilgamesh. I was late to the party in building him, but I have a very soft spot for Gilgamesh because he's one of the reasons why I became a content creator. I think my first video ever was talking about the Kotetsu damage because that was one of the most complex, most misunderstood things in his kit in terms of like, oh, is it magic scaling? Is it slash scaling? How does it interact with things? And back in those days, we didn't have a lot of insight to the damage formulas and the imperil was still one of like the highest imperils on demand around. It was great ability that yeah, I have a soft spot because he kind of jump started my content creating a journey. So obviously great unit. I think he's super fun and that he also has that time mage aspect to him and he did have several times where he kind of came in and out of the game. But yeah, two thumbs up for the OG.
So I think I mentioned a couple of units back. He was the on my initial roll of the game. I pulled Gilgamesh. Had no idea about 100 cost units or that they would be more expensive to build at that point in the first days of the game. But yeah, that was kind of my introduction to Gilgamesh, and the shards cost double back then, and he took me a while to build up to 99, but I spent a lot of viz to do it. Had one of the first maxed out Gilgameshes on the server, and absolutely was blasting people in free match on the regular. So he was an incredible manual unit for such a long time because of that time mage capabilities that you mentioned, and he could bring the damage too with Kutetsu. He had some nice upgrades over time when they added like the re-raise removal onto Kutetsu, and he got like a nice buff there as well. So um, unfortunately, the 140 upgrades never really brought him back again.
No, we had copied
So
for
that
that.
was kind of a swing and miss, but yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited for those too. Even with the Reagan and Howlett time last year, I was really excited to give him a shot, and it was close. It was close, but just never enough.
Mm.
But I think it's virtually all we wanted to cover for this. I know we did want to maybe talk a little bit about sort of Convallaria because there's a new event that's running right now. We probably could take 2 to 5 minutes if you want. I know we're at an hour and a half, but I really don't have much to add for sort of Convallaria at this point. They did introduce Eda this week, who is an excellent unit, really fun to play with. Well, obviously, we can take a deeper dive sometime. And Arc Blazer, no Gilgamesh cosplay, but maybe someday I'll cobble one together. I know it's been a while since I've done one of those. But yeah, no, sort of Convallaria. This event is a fun one. This is like a really cool PVE style event where they have like some mini games that you play through, and there's a little bit of farming, but it's not crazy heavy. And I really have not progressed at all in the game from the last time we talked. I completed stage 4 and a little bit more with spirals, but I'm really taking that game still a little bit slowly and just making sure I spend my energy every day and slowly leveling up and grinding and getting through it. But still really enjoying it. That's yeah, loving it.
Yeah, I really appreciated this. The creativity in the events with, you're kind of on a battlefield, but like you're kind of doing, not traditional kind of fighting and tasks. So also it kind of has a cute little story tied into it. So it's actually a crafted event. It's not kind of a couple of stages thrown out like we're used to
Right.
in War of the Visions. Um, so I really enjoyed seeing that, especially as kind of an introduction to their events, and I hope that continues. That there'll be, this level of effort put into them over time. I did pull for Edda. I think that she is a cool unit. Like she's got some interesting things that she can do. The thing that I've gravitated to most in the game thus far are the units that can manipulate the battlefield in some way, whether they can throw down some effect on the field, or in her case, she just creates a box, which, that sounds really weird, but actually you can do a lot of creative things with it. You can, create a high ground perch for your units. You can make it as like a block in a choke to kind of have the AI run in different directions and kind of change their pathing. So yeah, she's a cool unit, and I'm really liking her so far.
Yeah, same. So still we'll keep updates going, but unfortunately run out a little bit of time tonight. But that's all we wanted to cover. That's Shurecca and all the incoming news. Looking forward to her. Oh, we didn't even talk about this. Are you pulling or are you skipping?
I'm I'm still thinking about it.
Oh,
I'm probably gonna pull. Like, I mean, let's be real. How am I gonna skip at this point?
I
But
know.
yeah.
I'm skipping. So White Lotus Fina was the first unit I've truly skipped ever, like in years. Been a while. Um, and I think Shrek is going to be number two, if only because I desperately want the Garuda Vision card the week after, and I'm just not in a place to pull her or the Vision card. And I am at the point where I'm limiting myself intentionally to the pack H's, and those are getting refreshed. But I do want to be cognizant that like we have the collab coming and other stuff that I want to be a little more frugal with how I spend it. And given that we've already seen a little bit of like alternatives to Shreka, I want to try to use the alternatives than having to rely on her. And my hope is just pull her later.
I mean, by the time that the mono collab comes in, she'll be in the regular pool, so you could potentially get her as you're pulling for those units, or you could dump your rare tickets at that point as well and kind of pick her up. So honestly, I don't think it's a bad play at all, especially in light of the news with the collaboration. We know from past experiences how expensive the collaborations can be with multiple cards and characters, and usually they have been pretty significant meta changers, kind of looking back over time. So yeah, I think that's going to be, especially since you have Resnick too. I think that you can be creative and maybe create some fun counter comps and maybe get back to some of the cooking that we used to do.
That's the goal for sure. But that's it for now. Thanks again for sticking with us tonight, everybody. Appreciate the comments in the chat. Hopefully, we addressed mostly everything you want us to talk about from a comment and question perspective. But if not, as usual, when this video posts, comments, critiques, questions, all in the comment section below. We appreciate your feedback. We obviously do this for you guys, so we want to make sure that we're hitting everything you want to see as well. So enjoy the week. Good luck pulling, and we'll talk to you all in a couple